Good morning and welcome to Signs of Destiny 2004. We're beginning our Saturday morning program now, and this morning we have a wonderful lineup of speakers. Francine Blake will be talking about the English crop circles of this year, and then she will take those that are interested in knowing more of that up to her workshop upstairs. At that time, Michael Peter Langevin, the editor of Magical Blend magazine and its publisher, will be telling us secrets of the ancient Incas, about their shamans and the things that he has learned from them. And then he will have a workshop upstairs later this afternoon. And finally, we have a very special guest at the end of the morning, so don't miss it if you can, and that will be John English, an author and visionary from Phoenix, who will be talking about his new book called The Shift, An Awakening, which is a novel way, written in novel form, to talk about the possibility of reclaiming our country and, in fact, our land, our earth, as a group of united people that can actually have a serious and a positive impact on the political process if we will only take the steps necessary. So, without further ado, I want to have Francine Blake come up. Francine is a native of Montreal. She has lived in England many years, being married to a British man, and I guess it was about 12 years ago, or maybe even a little more than that, she was called to move from the London area down to Wiltshire. She really felt an internal call to go to that area because of the crop circle phenomenon, and very quickly she became involved in the local groups that were researching and looking at crop circles every year. She has been the coordinator of the Wiltshire Crop Circle Study Group for the last 8 years and is also the major photographer and editor of its annual calendar. So, Francine Blake.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was born, like Chet says, of a French-Canadian family in Montreal. My language is French, that's why I have an accent. I was, when I was young in Canada, a little girl, I always seek knowledge. And I felt very dissatisfied because I was born in mid-40s, and in Canada in mid-40s and the 50s, it was very rigid, and there wasn't much knowledge about. And my family started to find me very annoying of asking questions all the time about the universe and everything. And one day my aunt said to me in exasperation, I think I was 14, she said, "Don't you know the more you dig, the bigger the hole?" So I thought it's time I look elsewhere. So I moved to Montreal and did my study. I did my classical studies, Greek and Latin, and I've always been very, very seeking ancient knowledge. When I was 23, I was given the opportunity to go to Europe to finish my studies in art, because I did my baccalaureate in classical studies, and then I did art school. So I had the opportunity to go, and I had to choose which European country to go to, and I just said England. I wanted to go to England. I didn't know why. It's not my culture. It's, as my mother puts it, the land of our ancestral enemies, and she was very, very disappointed I went there. But I just had the real feeling I've got to go to England somehow, and I did. I had no address, didn't know anybody. I arrived there, and I suddenly found the knowledge I was seeking on day one that I arrived, which was quite extraordinary. So I studied ancient knowledge. I studied with the School of Gurdjief, if you've heard about this. And we did study in a very practical way. So I had 20 years in London studying ancient knowledge, and I felt that when I discovered the crop circle, I had an instant recognition. I really felt like it had hit me in the stomach, and that it was time to study that. And as Chet said, in 1992, the pressure got too heavy, because, you know, Wiltshire, this is Wiltshire where the Stonehenge is only 85 miles from London. It's not very far, but it takes 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours on the motorway to get there. And you don't hear anything that's going on. When you're in London, it's, you know, you might as well be on another planet, really. Yeah, I didn't know anything about Wiltshire. So you don't hear about it. And although I joined the CCCS, Center for Crop Circle Studies, in 1991, The information was sporadic, and we have, every now and then we had meetings in London, which was great, but it was 6 months after the events, you know. And even in the summer, I would jump in the car and drive there, but usually they were cut and so on. So it was very, very frustrating. And eventually, I told my husband we have to move to Wiltshire. So he wasn't very excited about this. And everything, circumstances concurred, and we moved, and we ended up in Alton Barnes, which is the most active area of crop circle in the world. So crop circles, as you know, I'm sure, appear all over the world. It's not just England by any means. And in England, it's not just Wiltshire, it's in every county. And some counties have some really spectacular formations. But Wiltshire is the most active, it really is, and we get the most amazing formations there. And this is where I live, and this is where I study them, and I don't have time to go, although sometimes I do take a bit of time and go to either Sussex or other parts of Britain to see the formation. I'm really more concentrated on Wiltshire. Because it's so active, and really I don't have enough time to do everything that has to be done there in the first place. So one thing that I really want to start by saying is that a crop circle, the study of crop circle is very factual, you know, although it's a subject that is very, very far removed from our ordinary understanding. It is so removed from our ordinary understanding that the majority of people in the world cannot even conceive of the possibilities of crop circles, you know. Something that just appears in the landscape and that carries meaning it doesn't fit in our mechanistic way of thinking. So it's only people who have already have a taste or have a path in the more spiritual. I find that people who are in healing and who work with energy and walk a spiritual path really recognize it quite quickly. They sense it and they recognize, they have an instant connection with that. But if you live in a mechanistic way and your world is really just on the mundane, you can't even see them. You know, there are people in Wiltshire and Devizes, which is the epicenter of the phenomenon in the world, who have never seen a crop circle. In fact, 98% of people in Devizes in Wiltshire have never seen one. And they're always surprised when you deal with this phenomenon. You don't live in the same dimension it's not the third dimension. We're no longer in the third dimension there. But every now and then I have to go to the bank and I have to do my shopping, you know. And I go in the bank and people say to me, they know me somehow, and they say to me, any crop circle this summer? Yeah, well, it's about 20. 20? Where? I haven't seen any. Well, it's everywhere, you know, you see them everywhere. But they can't see them because they're not on that wavelength. They're not vibrating on that energy. And sometimes people, I've had experiences of looking at the design that's actually down in the valley, and on the top of the hill you can see it as if you're flying right above it, you know, and it measures 500 feet. It takes half the field. It's so big. And, you know, a couple of years ago, a group of us were looking at this formation, and a jogger comes along. He said, what are you doing? What are you looking at? We said, we're looking at the crop circle. Oh my God, what's this? Well, when did that arrive? Well, about a week ago. It's not possible. I run here every day. Never saw it. And if we hadn't been there, you wouldn't have seen it, you see. So you have to seek them to see them. If you seek them, they are blindingly obvious. If you don't seek them, people have to point it to you. You're not on that wavelength. So it's very far removed from our ordinary way of thinking. Another thing that is constant in... so that is what I was going to say. It's based on facts. So the fact number one is that crop circles exist. Nobody can deny they exist. It is something that's imprinted in crops, and you can see them, you can measure them, you can go in, you can take samples, and all the rest of it. Another thing that is factual is that they come near ancient sites, and that is not just in England. I have seen evidence that all over the world they do come near ancient sites. What I mean by ancient sites is like Stonehenge here. It's ancient temples. It's area where the ancestors felt there was a powerful energy, because our ancestors, like all indigenous people, were close to the earth. They resonated with the earth. So they didn't have to use dowsing rods. They knew, they could sense the lines of energy in the earth. And they chose very carefully where the lines cross and created a powerful vortex or powerful point of energy. That's where they put their temple. And the stronger the point, the more important the temple. And these lines crisscross the entire planet, and all the ancestors from all tradition, from all races, knew this and chose these very, very special places to put their sacred temples, their sacred pyramids, and so on. And the new, as time went on and things changed and people came with different viewpoints and different religion, they always built on top. And that's the same in England. These stone circles, there are very few left. They say in England that 85% of all stone circles have been destroyed. We have 15% left, which is not a lot. But even so, there are quite a few left. They build the churches on top of stone circles, using the same stones. We know that in Mexico. They used to build a cathedral on the old pyramid. How insulting! Using the same stones, but it's because they knew that spot was very important, and people revered it and would carry on going, and therefore would take the new religion without too much hassle. So in England, we have these amazing stone circles. They are actually temples, and this is Stonehenge. Stonehenge is about 3,000, 4,000 BC. They're not actually 100% sure, in fact, because you can't date the stone. They just date implements that are around the stone, and that it is fairly approximate. Another temple is Avebury. This is not so well known, but it's older than Stonehenge. It is at least 5,000 years. We think it possibly is much older than that. And you can see here that it's got a village around it now. A village was built straight in it. But it is a very, very important temple. That is the old temple. It's been drawn as it was in the past, and you can see that where the village is the body, is the sun disk. It's a sun disk serpent temple. It is a serpent temple. And part of the avenue that goes to the second temple at the top, which is called the sanctuary, which no longer exists because it apparently was made of wood, is the head, and then you have the body, and the avenue is still partly there. And the second avenue, there's only 2 stones left, which are called Adam and Eve. And a couple of years ago, there were some archaeological digs there, and they have actually recovered. They have actually found many, many stones, because when the mindset changed and people started to be made to fear the ancient knowledge, they either buried the thing or they destroyed it. A lot of Avebury's the stone at Avebury was broken and used to make their houses and their fences and their barns and so on. The whole village of Avebury is built from the stones. They actually invented an implement, a tool to break the stones more quickly. But about 1700 something, Stukely, who was a gentleman archaeologist, who was also a man of power, had a law passed that stopped the destruction of the old monument. And that's why we've got some left, otherwise there wouldn't be any. But you can see that it is a serpent temple. It's a serpent sun disk, which is very, very important. Very important, because serpent is ancient knowledge. All ancient knowledge is serpent knowledge. I have come to realize that. And there are serpent mounds all over the world. So we've got one here in Ohio. I brought the photograph of the drawing. So that's your serpent mound here. But there were many serpent mounds. There's some in Scotland, some in India, in Burma, in the Orient. There are many, many. So at one point in the world, all the ancestors of all the 4 races, the 4 colors, had a common understanding. And they understood that all knowledge came from the serpent. And I've never understood this, because I have a Catholic upbringing, and the serpent was bad news. It was demonized, and you didn't touch. And actually yesterday, one of my cousins in Canada gave me some a magazine, esoteric magazines, and there was an article about why do people destroy symbols? Why are symbols so attacked throughout our history? And it's attacked because it carries power, and it carries power because it carries knowledge and understanding. And if you have understanding and knowledge, you're not easily manipulated. But I know that the ancient felt that serpent, all knowledge came from the serpent. It's also in the Bible, you know, the serpent of knowledge in the tree of knowledge. The serpent passes knowledge, and it always was a bit of a mystery to me until I realized actually that a serpent is this, and that is vibration, and that's the DNA, and that all knowledge comes from that. All knowledge, everything is this, everything is vibration. Yeah, I'm talking to you, and I'm sending little serpents to your ears, and you're sending little serpents to my eyes because I see you, and that is like this. Everything is like this. All knowledge, everything that exists is vibration, is vibratory, the whole universe. So when the ancients said that the cosmic serpent is where all knowledge came from, well, that is so because you cannot have matter without vibration. And vibration is also knowledge. You can't have life without knowledge, in actual fact, because life is based on principles, and these principles come from knowledge. So knowledge comes first, and knowledge is vibration. So the ancient understood very well, but they had a kind of inner understanding. They didn't sort of, you know, calculate everything. They just understood directly, and they're very pragmatic. It's always struck me, you know, if a plant looks like a liver, it's good for the liver. I've always found that absolutely amazing. And that if they understand the principle of vibration and they see a serpent, which is absolutely obvious that the serpent can be the symbol for that, for life. Also, water moves like this. Everything moves. I was flying above your country yesterday, and I was flying above a desert, and all the rivers are serpents. In Wiltshire, people still call the lines of energy dragon energy, because dragon and serpent is the same. It has the same thinking, you know, same meaning. So the serpent knowledge exists in every country. Also part of the Avebury complex is Silbury Hill. And Silbury Hill is a very ancient mound. We call it a mound. It's actually seven-stepped pyramid, but rounded somehow. And it was covered with earth. I don't know if it was covered with earth immediately it was built, or if it was covered with earth to preserve it from being destroyed. Because, as I said, often the ancient monuments were buried in order that they wouldn't be destroyed. But it is often said that it's a very feminine landscape there around Avebury, and that this represents the womb of the Earth Mother. Certainly the Earth Mother was very revered. It was more, in the white tradition, it's more a goddess. And Gaia was the goddess, the mother goddess of the earth. But the ancient cultures were actually much more intuitive, and therefore they had they were much more connected to the feminine, to the female side. As such, they were very intuitive and respectful and nurturing. In that landscape here, you can see that was sent to me by a friend of mine who is here, actually, Lara. This is Silbury Hill, you see on the left. I've just shown it to you. It's a huge mound. And next to it, this is a profile of a lady, an old woman, actually. And that's been there for 5,000 years. It somehow, they use the landscape. You see, Wiltshire is a land of chalk. It used to be a very ancient sea. Millions of years ago, it was sea there. So it's chalk. And it's white, therefore. And at a certain time in the winter, the soil is very thin, and the chalk comes through, and they use all the little creeks and all the rest of it and the landscape to create this profile of an old lady. Oh yeah, good, thank you. How does it work? Touch where?
You touch the little button on the side, it's like a pen.
Okay. So this profile of an old lady appears at the end of the year. You know, now we have an old man on the 1st of January, and then it was an old woman, because the earth is female. Isn't it amazing? And it just appears. You don't see it on the ground. It's absolutely impossible to see that on the ground. I didn't know about it for some years, but someone photographed it in winter, and this woman, old woman, just appears out of like magic. So it's a very magical landscape. It's actually near a town called Marlborough. And Marlborough is a modern name, and if you look at the ancient map, as I did, because I worked with ancient maps with my husband on something else, And the town of Marlborough in the 14th, 15th, 16th century was called Merlin Borough. Borough meaning the town or the area of, and Merlin, of course, everyone knows Merlin the magician. Merlin represents the ancient knowledge, because ancient knowledge was based on the understanding that everything is alive and everything is conscious. Everything. Not just people and plants, but actually time, hours, ether, everything had the conscience. Everything was conscious and therefore could be communicated with. You could communicate with that, and you could understand it, and you could work with it, or sometimes abuse it and misuse it. You know, I'm sure there's been lots of abuses at some point in our history, and that's why that knowledge was pushed away. It's a very powerful knowledge, but it's based on the understanding that there's life and consciousness. So there's always been a school there. There was this amazing temple, the Serpent Temple, and then the pyramid, and the whole landscape was covered with temples. And it had a school, and it was a school of Merlin knowledge, and Merlin is the understanding of life and consciousness. It's the ancient knowledge that the Egyptian had, that the Mayan had all the great ancestors had that knowledge, which we have lost, actually. We don't have it. We're beginning to feel, we're beginning to understand that it existed. We don't understand what that means to live like that. To live by the second, relating to everything around you in a conscious way. We don't know what that is. Maybe we touch it sometimes in meditation, and it's bliss. But it is living, the concept of living in a living world that is totally conscious and being a participant of that. That is ancient knowledge, in my view. So another thing that is very prevalent in Wiltshire, there's about 10 of those, are these carved white horses. This is the oldest one. It's at Uffington in Oxford. That is, we know for sure, at least 5,000 years. Again, people just remove the earth and the clods of earth and just reveal the chalk behind it, because the hills are hills of chalk. So all you have to do is to make this design is to remove the chalk. This one is very ancient. These are more modern, you can see, but apparently people, it's a bit like all ancient, what people did in the ancient time, they just recarve the thing every now and then, and they modernize it gradually. So this one is, in Art and Bounds, is about 250 years old, and this is more modern and so on. But they were on places that had white horses in the past. Now, a white horse, again, is a very important symbol, and for the ancient, it meant that the people had the ability to go between the worlds. So the ancient shamans in the northern climes, which were mostly women in those days because it was a matriarchal society, would carry a staff to indicate that they had knowledge, and on this staff would be a carved horse head, and to show that they had the ability to go between the levels, to go between the worlds. They also felt that when we died, it was the horse that took. I was interested that the Mayans say it's the ego, but the horse would take the soul into the other realms. So when you have this staff with a horse's head, it gradually became, you have a hobby horse now that the children use. That's from that. It's a remnant of that. And the broom that the witches fly on, that's it too. That's what that is. So these were to indicate in the landscape that these areas were areas of power. They were portals. These are areas where there is a possibility to go beyond, to change levels, to go beyond the physical, beyond the veil. And surprise, surprise, that's where crop circles come. Crop circles come around these ancient monuments, right below the white horses very often, mostly on the, very, very close to the ancient monuments, and on these lines of energy. So very quickly, for those who haven't heard a crop circle, I'm going to go through that very quickly because I feel that crop circles have three aspects. That is my understanding. It has a physical aspect. It has a physical aspect. That is very, very important. Because, for years I've studied symbols and ancient knowledge from books and from work. No, it's not true, from tradition. I mean, it was a direct experience, but a lot of the time when we see symbols, we try to understand it here, Whereas when you get a crop circle, it's in the land. It's not in an image. It's not an abstract concept. It's actually imprinted in matter. And you can go in and you can experience the energy. And that's quite different. To actually see a symbol in a book and try and understand it with your head is not the same as going in it and feeling its energy. Because the energy of the symbol is in its design. And you enter the design, it actually imprints on you. You get an impression. That's what an impression is. It imprints in. And you actually sense it. You know, you receive that energy. And gradually, things I had spent 20 years trying to understand, you know, breaking I go in there, and gradually, I understand it from within. Suddenly, I get the feeling, I understand this. I feel, it comes from inside rather than outside. And that is a very, very important thing, and it doesn't happen very often in our history that we have things like that. We should really value them, you know. Some people who come from ancient cultures really understand the value of it. In England, we're so blasé in the West, you know. I've seen people go in crop circle and they come in and say, where's the next one? They've only been there for 2 minutes. Another one around here? Yeah, right, I'm going. They don't take time, we don't value enough. But so the physical aspect is very important. We've had lots of experiments done and analysis to show that the plants are really very, very affected. You can see it with your naked eye. You can see that this is normal plants in the field, and that's a plant from a crop circle in the same field, you see. So the nodes there, the living parts, is actually very different. It's swollen, it's received a very powerful energy, it's been heated very rapidly, and something has changed. And it's changed its composition, and it grows differently, and the whole plant is completely transformed. The soil also changes its composition. I've spoken to a lot of people who work in the field, and Nancy will tell you actually, she'll talk about that tomorrow, so I won't spend much time, but it's a very important aspect that it does have an impact. And you can see this is from a Canadian formation, and it's bent 90 degrees. The node is swollen. You don't actually need to go in there with your microscope. You can see it with your naked eye. And the instruments are often affected. This summer we had a lot of malfunction with cameras and so on, even a helicopter, and I'll tell you, I'll go do a review of the season later on in the lecture. But when you enter a crop circle, you enter an electromagnetic field. There's an energy, that's a residual energy in there that can affect our instruments and does on a regular basis. Other experiments that have been done is people have taken the plants and juiced them and look under the microscope and see what kind of design it produces. This is an ordinary plant that's been grown in a field, and that's what it looks like. And then the same field in the crop circle, the plants there give a completely different pattern. So there's a transformation at energy level, in actual fact. Other experiments have been done from the principle of homeopathy. You know, homeopathy is the understanding that water has a memory. Water can retain patterns. And you know, with the work of the Japanese researcher, I can't remember his name now. Yeah, him. I'm very impressed with his book. It's very interesting. You see the same when you photograph crop circles. When you put water in crop circles and you look under the microscope, you'll see some amazing patterns. And this is actually water. This is spring water, Evian water, and that's done by Dr. Schweitzer in London, and he called me and said, can you take me to some crop circle, and I put some bottles there and see what happens. So we did, and I'm not going to show you many. I've got about 20 of his pictures, and they're all amazing. But this formation, which is a scorpion formation in Wiltshire, West Kennet Long Barrow, which is just here, which has had some amazing formation this summer, I'll show you later, and we put the bottle there. And then we went to other formation. We did many in the same day. And when he took a little drop and put it under his microscope, the energy pattern was this. And they were all different, and they all actually look like the formation, you know. It's like a holographic imprint. It's really the energy reflects the whole, which is the principle of everything, principle of the universe. The smallest part that you can possibly have is the energy, and the energy actually looks like the whole. It reflects the whole. So then I took him, that's another interesting one, that's a little formation in flax, which is a blue flower, linseed, at 1999, I think it was. And you see it's a diamond pattern, it's surrounded by little circles. And we had lots of interesting effect when we tried to photograph it. It seemed to wipe out the color. Several people have had that. Anyway, I took him there. It was a very sort of mauvey feeling. The plants are mauvey blue. There's the white horse there. This is the valley where it all happens. A lot of it happens at any rate. And the water that was put there gave this pattern of energy, which is bluey mauve, which is little diamond patterns surrounded by circles. It was absolutely extraordinary. And this is a man who didn't know anything much about crop circles. This is just part of his study. So he'd send me these pictures and he'd forgotten the names. He didn't remember where they were. And I could identify by the energy pattern which formation it was. It is a holographic image. So when we go into a crop circles, we're mostly water. We enter there with our, 80% water, bing, 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 bing. We get imprinted with the pattern. That's why we carry it inside. That's why we begin to have these openings in our consciousness. Suddenly we feel comfortable with them, and we begin to think like the ancients. We begin to have contact, direct contact, which is wonderful. The lay in there, we call these lays, it's the way that the crops is laid, is very delicate, and it moves like water. It's very fluid. There's a real feeling of water in it. And later on I'll show you something that's happened this summer that corroborates that. Sometimes the imprint is very, very light. That's 2 years ago. That's imprinted in barley. As I haven't told you, but they can happen in anything, crop circles, not just crops. It can happen in any plants, they've happened in a tree field in Czechoslovakia in 1991, tree in the forest, where the trees were bent 90 degrees, and made a wonderful infinity symbol. The tree is like that. It's like plasticine. It seems like it softens the plant. This is very lightly imprinted in barley. I was taken by Derica, who's a member of our group, and she took the photograph, and I said to her, "Where's the formation?" She said, "You're in it." I said, "What? Where?" Farmers don't believe us sometimes when we tell them there's a crop circle. They go there, they just don't see anything. But I had photographed it the day before, and it's pretty obvious. It is a symbol. It's a lotus symbol. It's a lotus symbol in a fractal design spinning. And it's very, very clear, but on the ground you could hardly see it. And then they are very large. Some formation can be 1,000 foot diameter, but usually 350, 400, 300, 250, 300, that's pretty, we get a lot of those. They are large, and sometimes they are absolutely enormous. So when we go in them, we don't see very much, and you can see it just looks fairly messy, and you can tell there's a geometric pattern, but unless you survey it, you can't really tell what design it is. But when you have to go above it. You have to rise above it to see it. Isn't that amazing? That is a very practical thing, the crop circles. You have to rise above it to see it. It's a tremendous lesson. The whole thing is a lesson in how to go towards a more transformation. So when you rise above it, you see it. That's the pattern, that's the design that I showed you. And what looked like a total mess is actually a very precise lay that gives you lights and shadow, that gives you a three-dimensional design. And there are some fantastic examples of that, which I don't have time to show you because I was asked to do a review of the season, so this is one example, but there are some amazing ones. They've always been with us. There are many reports in the past about crop circles. Problem is that our forebears didn't call them crop circles. So we have to read the description to know that it was one. But this is a very well known, you may have heard about this, and it's in the little information pamphlet I've given you. This is a story it was published in a news sheet in August 22nd, 1678. It was in Hertfordshire. And this is the drawing that they did. It's a woodcut. And they did a drawing of a little devil who's actually making a crop circle. And it's written by... It accompanied a text, and the text is written in colloquial English, which is quite nice. And it says it's written by a true relation of a farmer who, upon hearing the price that his mower was going to ask to bring in his field of oats, said, "It's rather the devil mowed it than he." And that very night, the field was found all of aflame, and the next morning laid so neatly by the devil or some infernal spirit that no one was able to do the like, no man was able to do the like. So we know that is a description of a crop circle. There's often lights that are accompany crop circles, either before, during, after. There's very, very often lights that is happen at the same time. And no man is able to do the like. I don't care what people say. I've never known anybody reproduce a crop circle properly that really looks like the real thing. I've never seen that. People can make things by hand. It doesn't look the same thing. And they usually do it when they're paid to do commercials. And they're paid, and it takes them 3 or 4 days, and it's done in daylight, or they put cranes in the field with great big spotlights. It's lit like a football field. It's not the same. No man is able to do a real, crop circle like we've had thousands of examples of. I've never known this. And you offer them, and they don't want to do it. They say they don't like to repeat their design in public. They're too shy. This is it's a farce. The man-made theory is not very solid. So I'll go a bit deeper in that later on. So that is one example from the past. But there's been a lot also. Recently, I've discovered something, and if you're interested, you should go on BLT, Nancy Talbot's website, and she's put some extract of articles written in the 16th century also, or 17th century rather, where they thought, and they have photographed, they thought that they were made by trumpets. They were made by sound coming from the ether. Now, I think they're quite close to that now, actually. It's much better than the devil. But, the sound they thought they were sent by sound from the ether, from above. So crop circles, we've had many. I don't know exactly how many people. We tend to say, 6,000, 10,000. Some people say 10,000. I don't actually know for sure because they are in many different bases. The early researchers are loath to reveal exactly, and they counted them differently anyway. When they had a design, they would count how many circles there were in a design, so they could come up with 30 circles. We'd say one formation. So it's quite different. It is confusing. So I would say in our own database, we have about 2,000 since 1995. So there are many thousands around the world. We see that when we put them together, that they do follow one another. They expand, you see. And you can follow them. There is a progression in their meaning, and I'll show you that through the imagery. So for example, that's the second aspect of crop circle that I can see. So the physical aspect is the how it's done in a way of energy, the kind of power that do that. Microwave. We know there's all sorts of energies that are involved in this, and that's really Nancy's study and Dr. Levengood. But affect the plant and so on, the size, the location, and so on and so forth. But the second aspect is what are they? What are the shapes? They're not just little splodges or any kind of rough design. They're very specific. And these very specific designs refer to ancient symbols, many of them, and these symbols are very precise. And we know many of these symbols. This is a formation that appeared at Barbary Castle in 1991. There's a whole lot of story going on about this. But it is a mind, body, spirit. This is what when Chet said, I felt the inner call. This was my inner call. I thought, I can't stay in London when this kind of stuff is happening. This is ridiculous. I'm an hour and a half away. What am I doing here? I've got to go. This is happening. How can anybody live away from this? I can't understand it. I'd rather die. Do you know what I mean? So this is a mind, body, spirit, which I knew very well because I had been studying this for 20 years in depth. So suddenly it appears in the landscape. It's pretty shocking, And it's also the lower part of the Kabbalah, of the Tree of Life. This is it. It's the lower part of the Tree of Life, the level of man in the Tree of Life. You see? That the blueprint of the universe, the understanding of life and consciousness and levels of life and consciousness, the Kabbalah is a huge study. But it is a study that I had touched upon, and I knew what it was. And the lower part is the part that concerns us really, because it's to do with the human being. Now, 1991, the first part, 1997, we had the whole tree appeared. Now, I was so shocked I couldn't speak for 3 weeks. Literally, I was shocked, rigid, and I rang my friend. I'd never studied fully the Kabbalah. It's a Jewish tradition, but it's much older than the Jewish tradition, actually. The Egyptian had this tradition, and it goes way back, and I know that in South America they have that because it's in the in Peru there is an engraving of it. But I have people who have studied this for 30, 40 years, and I rang them and said, would you like and come speak to our group about the Kabbalah? And they've never forgiven me. I've lost friends. They were so insulted that their secret teaching they'd been studying secretly for 30 years suddenly splats itself in the field for everyone to study. What is this? Why? You know, they felt threatened. So, and one said, how can I talk to you about the Kabbalah? I've only studied it for 35 years. I can't possibly tell you anything about it, you know. So we didn't get much. But these are the ancient teachings that are coming back. They are, to me, crop circles, invitation to study. It's opening a door, you know. Bing, the Kabbalah suddenly. The Kabbalah also exists in all of us. It's exactly the same. We are made on the same pattern as the universe, actually. I'm sure you know that. And then a couple of weeks later, after the first Barbary Castle, this amazing formation appeared. That is the Mandelbrot set. That's again a very advanced. You see, crop circles refer to ancient knowledge. They also refer to very advanced contemporary knowledge, which is this is a fractal, and it's named after Dr. Benoit Mandelbrot, and it's to do with the theory of chaos. It's a mathematical equation. This is the actual mathematical pattern of the Mandelbrot set. And the crop circle was absolutely that. We only had it for a day. It appeared when people were actually harvesting the field. So the crop circles deal with symbols. It is a symbolic study. And a symbol is a design that transmits knowledge. Knowledge has always been transmitted through symbols, you know. In the past, they had these kinds of symbols. In the modern time, we have these kinds of symbols. This is mathematical. That's a mathematical symbol. It's a fractal. It's a mathematical equation. This is an ancient symbol. And we had them sometimes referring to these mathematical symbols and sometimes to the ancient symbols. And this time they were side by side, 1996. That was an amazing thing to have them side by side. They arrived at the same time together. I'm going to show you how they evolved, the crop circles. So this one in 1996, which was very near Stonehenge, and this is a road called the 303 that goes from Cornwall to London, appeared on Saturday afternoon between 5:30 and 6 o'clock. We have many witnesses to say that, an air pilot, a security guard there, the farmer who visited this field in the afternoon, and which was the fourth. The police told us that the traffic started to be troublesome at about 10 to 6 when this became very visible. But before that, there was nothing there. But I just want to show you that there is a progression, that crop circles do not repeat. I've never known a complete repeat. They will expand on the theme. They will continue on the same theme. They will expand on it, but they don't repeat exactly. So this, in 1996, this wonderful Julia set, it's called, opposite Stonehenge. Look at the size. Look how many Stonehenge you could put in there. Could put about 6 or 7. It measured 915 feet long. I know I measured it. It took us 2.5 hours just to take one measurement, you know, on the spine. Because you do the circle, the space, 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 the circle, the space. You go on and on and on and on and on. Took 2.5 hours, you know. That's just taking at a gallop, because the farmer sent us there at 9:30 in the evening. It was getting dark at the end. We had to do it with flashlights. So it was at a gallop. How can people think that could be done by hand without being seen? You know, and the farmer said to us, go at 9:30, because I don't want anybody to see you in there, because they'll go in immediately. How come people can see me when I go to measure it, and they can't see the hoaxes? This doesn't make sense. There's no common sense in that theory. 2 weeks later, a continuation on the theme. See? This time 3 arms. This is done on top of a hill. So when you're here, you can't see people at the bottom there. Look at the geometry. Perfect here. See? Perfect geometry. This time was nearly 1,000 foot long, 194 circles. Absolutely wonderful. Then the continuation on this. The thing with crop circle, that's another nail in the coffin of hoaxing, I think, is that they don't have the knowledge. I don't have the knowledge. I just barely recognize. I don't have that knowledge in order to transmit it in a visual form like that. You know, you really need to know it. And I can't foresee what will come afterwards. No one can. No one can. Even the top mathematician with a mathematical thing, they can't foresee the next step because it's always beyond. It's always teaching us. It's always beyond our level. What is beyond this level? Could you imagine something better than this on this theme? I couldn't. We can't imagine. We always, what is this? You know, it takes us weeks to recover. So that was fantastic. I can't really talk too much about it. It was just amazing. But it was the size of a village. This is the size of a house here. It was the size of a village. You could only walk one. I don't know anybody who walked all of them. It was too much. It made you dizzy. You just couldn't do it. Now, crop circles have come. There have been, as I said, there have been thousands. I don't know exactly how many thousands, but there have been thousands, and there are many, many, many families, and it would take me a week to give you all the information that I can, but sometimes they are absolutely specifically ancient symbols. Other time it's more abstract, and we have to hunt a little bit more. But this is, again, that is serpent knowledge. That's infinity. It's talking about infinity. And in fact, this is very much about time, and I think you could relate that to the Mayan calendar quite well. But they carry so much knowledge, You see, pendulum, that's last year formation. Yin and yang here, there's a whole study on the yin and yang and pendulum and passing of time and epochs and era and the wheel of time. Many, many insistence on that. But I'm just going to give you the review of the season now. The season started with this design, which was immediately cut by the farmer. The farmer immediately cut the waves here. It's interesting because we tentatively, I have to say that in our calendar we felt that because it's a calendar we really ought to give it a different, grid than the Gregorian grid, which is so dead that we would try to introduce a Mayan calendar. The problem is that it's not so easy as it sounds, and that there are many different aspects of it. So we're just doing this tentatively, but we were thinking that we introduced the concept of the wave, and the first formation was a waves here, which I thought was amazing. But anyway, that was cut very, very quickly by the farmer. This was the second one in Wiltshire, and that's a very beautiful design. It came in wheat, early wheat, and immediately it relates. You see, you've got these symbols coming like that, bang, 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 every day, and you look at them. You barely have time to look at them. Oh, there's a new one, click, click. Next day, oh, there's a new one there, click, click. You don't have time to think and absorb. But when you do have time, when at the end of the season you put them together, you see that they slot themselves in line, and they link with things that have happened in the past, and they continue a train of thought. It's like a university in the fields. And there are many departments, many departments, and they slot themselves there, and you can read them, And this this intimated to formation about 3 years ago, you see? That was very close by, and to formation of a couple of years ago in Stonehenge. So it has these repeats that it's not a repeat, it's not the same, it's a continuation of a theme. It opens new doors, it accentuates, it deepens the knowledge, deepens the understanding. And then on the solstice, the summer solstice, this amazing design appeared. And I hope I've got it in the landscape. No, I haven't got it in the landscape. Yes, I have. And this design, I'm saying that because this relates to what John Major Jenkins was saying last night about the 2012 and so on. There is an ancient stone long barrow there, what we call long barrow. There's stone chambers, they're underground stone chambers. It's been covered with earth. It's called Adam Grave, but actually under the earth there's a stone barrow there. And that is aligned precisely, exactly like this, on this line, to the 21st of December. It's a winter solstice, absolutely aligned with the winter solstice. So on 2012, that's where we're going to be, because it's absolutely in line. And when the transit, the Venus transit, which lasted 8 hours, as you know, we did the gathering there, and we did the Veda fires called Agnihotra, and we sang mantras for about 8 hours, right through the transit. We also looked at the transit and all sorts of things and so on. But we were on that line, we chose that line. And a week later, bang on the solstice, this amazing pattern appeared right there. Now, some people in our group hadn't been able to go to our gathering on the 8th of June for the transit. So they came on the 20th in the afternoon, and they sat there and they had a picnic, and they said that they suddenly heard sound coming from the field that sounded like mantras. And they could hear it very loud, and they actually went in the field and they could hear that. So there were sounds coming there, and it's been heard since, in actual fact. But to me, that very much looks like a kind of musical instrument. We think it looks a bit like the clef, the clef, les clés de musique, musical clefs. And it looks to me like a kind of trumpet. And I was reminded of what our forebears, not the ancient, but our forebears thought that trumpets from the ether were sending this design. And it is interesting. But it's a very interactive, as you can see. It happens around you. You do something, you get a response. And there is an interaction that what people say, I can't remember the name now, the word, I'm confused. But anyway. So a week later, under the white horse, as I said, here is Adam's grave, and right below it is where that formation I've just shown you, the musical one at Eastfield, and on this side, this amazing pattern appeared a week later. And it was a very complex, and you can see that it refers to ancient symbols. I mean, there's the winged disc here, the winged disc, which is the symbol at the temple of Avebury, was a winged disc serpent. And you have the moon here and the sun, and that's the symbol of Isis, the sun and the moon. And here you have the tiara symbol, and if you put it the other side, I photographed like this, most people photographed it the other way around, and you can see, and I think that Alan has done a drawing that shows that it's very much like the serpent, the caduceus. And with the wings here, it's the staff of Hermes. It's very much like the staff of Hermes. So there's layers upon layers of symbols. And you'll see that this winged disc has repeated itself 3 times this summer. So we're invited to learn about the winged disc. What does it mean, the winged disc? What does it mean, the caduceus? The caduceus is the whole understanding of medicine. I mean, it's a huge study. If you understand these things, we begin to learn about many different studies. It opens many doors, and we do that. We actually do that. So after that, this wonderful sun-moon symbol appeared right opposite West Kennet Long Barrow. Now, this Long Barrow is a stone chamber, an ancient Neolithic stone chambers, where the ancient went and did. It's a bit like a church, and they went in there and did the rituals, the ceremonies, and so on. And this is Silbury Hill. You can see how close these are. And that's the little path that people go to see the West Kennet Long Barrow. You can't, we often say crop circles bring us back to the ancient temples, and people say, how come? Well, right, look, it's right by the door. And people who would go to the stone chambers and never set foot in the crop circle would immediately go in, automatically, because, there's a crop circle, I'm going in. And vice versa, people who don't go into the ancient site, go see the crop circle, there's a West Kennet Long Barrow, I better go in. So there's this kind of thing. So we're really being brought back physically to the ancient knowledge. Do you see? Because when you visit ancient sites and you begin to experience them, you begin to start to think like your ancestors. You begin to understand them. I was brought up to hate my ancestors because I was brought up Catholic, and anything to do with pagan and anything to do before Christianity was bad news, and don't go there because, they were evil and all the rest of it. And it's caused a terrible schism in the white race, this. We're the only race that has no contact with our ancestral knowledge. Think of that. The red race, the yellow race, the black race, all have revere their ancestral knowledge. They still are in contact with it, and they revere their ancestors. We were brought up to hate them, to consider them pagan, to consider them evil, to consider them ignorant. That's not true. They had the same knowledge as all the ancestors. They had a very high knowledge, and it was extinguished. It was destroyed. Luckily, we still have some. And by going there, we begin begin to see things the way they did. We reconnect with our ancient knowledge. We reconnect with our ancestors. And it's bad for the white man's psyche not to be in contact with the ancestral knowledge. It's very bad. It created this split with the earth and everything. Look at the symbol. A sun, a rising sun, rising from the moon. You see? The moon is dark, that's the yin aspect. The sun is bright, that's the yang aspect. This time they're connected together. The sun is rising from the moon. Important symbol. This was a lovely, long formation, very big, 885 feet long, I think. It filled practically the whole width of the field. It's enormous, and lots of moon crescent, many moon crescent this year. We're invited to study. Now, this little design was, to me, it had almost the same impact as the Kabbalah, because I see this as the axis Mundi, the axis of the world, the ancient, very sacred symbol of the center. This is the center of the galaxy, and the galaxy sends its vibration north, south, east, west, the 4 directions, and the 4 worlds, the 4 suns. We're coming into a 5th sun now. And on here, everything happens. It's the world tree of the Maya. It's the axis mundi. And the 4 directions are expressed with vibration. Again, the serpent, you see, in the 4 direction. Right next to it, another design appeared. In actual fact, I spent an hour taking photograph of this. This is right below the White Horse here. And I was in the air till about 6:30, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, somebody rang me. And people ring me any time of day or night, actually. And I was a bit surprised. And he said, there's a new formation at Pusey under the White Horse. I said, I know, I was there till 6:30 last night. And he said, no, you don't. There's a new one. And that was it. That's a chakra symbols. Look at it. See? Right next to it. And the White Horse is right there. So you have the 7 chakras here. And it's wonderful. I spent several hours in there, and really each one gave you a completely different feeling. Here the heart opened up very much. Here the crown chakra with the 3 feathers. Now you really felt opening up to the universe. And I went with my husband, and he is not really into that kind of he doesn't know about these things. It's not his knowledge, and he's not someone in the healing or that kind of field. He's very pragmatic. But when he got in there, he started to sing hymns. He's singing at the top. I said, why are you saying that? He said, I don't know, but I just feel like he's singing. It really activated every chakra. I said, did you feel sexy at the bottom? He said, yes, actually, I didn't tell you, but it's true. It's true. It activated every chakra. You could feel it. What was very interesting is this, to me, is a representation of the world tree. Therefore, that the point, the central sun, the point in our galaxy here, upon which everything depends, and it's the universal understanding too. There, the only way to access that was through the heart. You got into the heart and straight in, which was good, interesting also. It's double spiral, very nice. Again, the wave here, a little filigree. It's not as small as you think. It was about 250 feet long. This was lovely. This was by West Kennet Long Barrow, where I showed you pretty well where the scorpion was in the first. I showed you the pattern of energy in the scorpion. That's pretty well where. That's near the West Kennet Long Barrow, the stone chamber. And at first I thought they were 4 labyrinths, but they're not. It's actually 2. This is 1 that goes in 2 directions. It's actually like the Mayan G symbol, this one, but that's been rounded. And it took me 20 minutes to walk in to one, 20 minutes to walk out. So to do the 4 would take 2 hours. And it's based on different geometry. I don't know. The person who drew it said it was very difficult to draw because they were not even. But they look even, but they were not. But at a certain angle, it changed completely, and it became like a cross. So when you went around, the light just changed the pattern completely. I nearly you'd nearly jump out of the helicopter. You see that, oh my God, what is this? But it's extraordinary, the subtlety, the finesse of using the ray of the sun to actually change the pattern completely. Now you try that with the plank. At night in the mist, you try that. A wonderful little. We had lots of insects this summer, and this is I identified that. This gives me a feeling of a little spider, and the spider symbol is quite important to know. It goes with the web. We had the web in some years ago. I can't remember the year of the web now. but it's in the 90s, and we had this wonderful spider's web, and it took a few years, and then the spider sort of arrived. Now the web, you know, represents the universe. Our ancestors felt that the universe was like a web, because everything is connected. It's one web, and everything is connected. And the spider sits at a corner, and if a little fly comes anywhere on the web, she knows, because the whole thing vibrates. Well, it's the same in the universe. Whatever happens to the earth, the whole universe can feel it. Let me tell you that. It's no wonder that, we're getting help. We are really putting a spanner in the whole works. We're poisoning the whole system. What's happening on the earth has repercussions. That is ancient knowledge. It's also very delicate. They say the web is all connected. It looks wonderful, but it's actually very fragile. So they use that as a meaning of the fragility of the world and the world of illusion, you know. So as we read them, we learn. This is what I find fascinating with Crop Circle. As we read them, we learn. They are doors that open, and to open to other doors to other doors. This formation was in a wood. In England, this is called a forest. In Canada, it's called a wood. It's only about 3 or 4 miles. But you had to drive through the wood in order to get to this opening and this wonderful formation, which I think is fabulous, was there. You know, we don't often have formation in that area. We had 3 where we had to actually drive through a wood. Now that's very interesting. You know, that is also an aspect of Crop Circle. They actually take you there physically and make you do things. To go to see a formation, you have to go uphill. You know, people think, oh, I do tours in the summer, and I had people sometimes saying to me, I thought you said the bus was going to take us to the Crop Circle. Well, yes, but you know, you can't drive you into the field. But sometimes it's 40 to 20 minutes to walk to the field, and sometimes it's uphill, and you have to climb over fences, and it's hot, and you're sweaty, and you're going on, and and it takes 2 hours to get there, and so on. So you have to implicate yourself. So if they take you through a forest, you immediately start to look at the forest, which we don't see often when we live in town. So on, you think, oh, the forest, or the trees. You start to think about trees. Start to think about global warming. You start to think about we should do something about the trees. You know, it brings all this. And then a beautiful opening, and you go in there. The symbolic aspect was very interesting. This is a square in a circle. Now the circle is symbol of the universe, is symbols of spirituality. The square symbols of materiality. So our world is this and that, in that, of course, but the earth is usually represented by a square and the number 4. In that square, there are 9 squares, and 9 squares is a full cycle. It's a completion of a cycle. So we've come now to a completion of a cycle. You can see that these 9 squares are not exactly in harmony. It's been a rough ride, the last big cycle, a very rough ride, but it's come to completion now, you see. That's how I read it. That, again, was also in the Savanac forest, just outside in a little clearing. That's also based on the square. This, to me, reminds me of Mayan art. I see that as a Mayan symbol, but I can't really quite read it. I can't read it. I don't have Mayan knowledge. But I can tell you that it's based on the square, and that all these little punch holes there were square. And the corners here were laid in squares. It was all laid in squares, so it's quite complex. This lovely little wheel, which had an incredible lay, which I haven't seen, but Chet went in that. He said the most amazing lay he's ever seen in his life. But the wheel refers to the wheel of time and passing of time and cycles. And we've had dozens and dozens of wheels, which again it slots itself into a line. When you put them together, it's very interesting, because then it really starts to speak to you. Now this was an amazing formation that's been much maligned. It came quite close to the B formation. It also has wings, and it has the crescent and the sun. So it is a second intimation to wing circle here, wing disc. It's quite big. This is 200 feet across, and look, it's full of people here. But it was maligned because it arrived in sections. But there's been a lot of of formation that have arrived in sections. They don't all come all at once. Sometimes, they come in sections over several days. This evolved over 4 days. But it kept growing. It kept growing. But I met, I took a group of Swiss people. It's very interactive with human beings, crop circles. People will tell you, everyone recognizes something, everyone feels, that one is for me specifically. You see a certain aspect, it resonates, and it synchronizes with what you're doing, what you're thinking. But other people also, and everyone claims it for themselves. That was for me personally, well, it isn't. But you're on that wavelength, and you can connect with certain aspects, and people connect from all different aspects. So everyone finds what they're looking for in crop circles. But I had, I was giving a tour, and I had a group of Swiss people just arrived from the mainstream, just landed from the mainstream, just off the boat. And they were very shy and quite stiff, and they were, as people are, as we are normally when we live in the mainstream day to day. They were not expansive or anything like that. So I took them, I gave them a tour, and I gave them a lecture on, I'll get onto that later on, but anyway, I had them for 1 day. The rest of the week they were with someone else. And their theme was to connect with dragon energy, and they were doing exercises to connect with the dragon energy. Therefore, they were placing themselves on lines. And this particular formation was in the right place where they wanted to work, and they took it to their heart, and they interacted with it for about 4 or 5 days. And they were, every day they went in, early in the morning, they went in at night, they went in the evening, and they said it was expanding around them. Expanding around them, And by the end of the week, I'd never seen anybody transform so much. They were so different. It was extraordinary. There were 2 young 14-year-old there, which had been dragged by their parents, and very sour on the first. They wouldn't look at me, and they were like dragging their feet. And at the end of the week, I was walking in town, and suddenly these 2 youngsters come to me. Hello. Who are these? Oh yes, these 2 surly adolescents. They were absolutely transformed. But they had this interaction, and they said, they watched, and the youngsters that really took it to their heart. They went there at night, they watched the formation, they never saw anyone around them, but it interacted with them, and it was growing and growing around them. So it was pretty fantastic. The final aspect was that. So at the end of that week, they went and did, after this had finished, they went to Glastonbury, which is another very important area in Wiltshire. It's not in Wiltshire, actually, it's in Somerset, but it's another ancient place. And they went on a tour, which is a bit like Silbury Hill. It's a mound, a sacred mound. And they did a formation, they did some exercise, and I wasn't there, so I don't know, but they told me they did some shamanic exercises to raise the dragon energy. And they came back to Wiltshire, and they did the helicopter flight, which I had arranged for them, and they had 9 flights, but because they were about 25, 30 people, I can't remember. But so the pilot would take them, take a group, do a route, come back, take a next group, because they can only take 4 or 5 at a time, and so on. At trip number 4, there was about 20 minutes between the journey, 20 to 30 minutes between the journeys. At trip number 4, suddenly, on their route, there was a major serpent dragon that had appeared in that 20-minute gap. It was 200 feet long. And it had a ridge on its back that the wheat had been somehow pushed up, and it made this kind of little pattern on its back, like a dragon thing. You can imagine. Can you imagine witnessing something like that? Everybody gets their camera. None of the cameras worked. They're going, nothing, blocked, frozen solid. So they went in, visited it. The farmer cut it so fast I didn't have a chance to take a picture of it. He cut it very, very quickly. But they said that it was the most amazing thing. And I have an aerial photograph, but the guy had to be about, 500 feet away from it. And so it's at an angle. Nothing above it would work. No cameras worked above that formation. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture because it's cut. So when I met them on the Sunday in that formation, I went to see them on the Sunday in that formation, they all ran towards me, and they looked different. They looked physically different. They were shining, And one man who was in his 60s, he said, "Oh, I'm afraid I'm going back to the real world. I'm really depressed. I mean, tomorrow back to the real world." I said, "Which world is real? Which one is the real one? Maybe it's this one, you know." Now, this wonderful formation below Golden Ball Hill is dolphin and whales. It's been much maligned, much maligned. I'll tell you a story about this. This appeared right at the foot of Golden Ball Hill. Now, you're in the land of Merlin here, so suspend your beliefs. Get rid of your beliefs. You don't need those. Just in the land of Merlin. In the land of Merlin, things happen that don't happen in our ordinary world, and it's different. And it's always been like that. It's always been considered a magic land because it's called Merlin, the land of Merlin. And people still call the lines of energy dragon lines, and there is a hill that's called the Golden Ball Hill because golden balls have been seen there for centuries. It's not a new phenomenon, and people knew that. And therefore, so when I gave my lecture to the Swiss people in the evening, I said, Golden Ball Hill and all this that I'm telling you. And I also told them, I've never seen lights in the landscape. I know there are many, many lights that are seen, little lights, beams of light, sometimes the whole valley. That I have seen. I have seen the whole valley illuminated. Actually, we were woken up, my husband and I, 3 times, you know. Suddenly, there's no house anymore. There's just light, and you wake up and you see, are you awake? Yeah. Can you see the light? Yeah. Must be a crop circle? Yeah. Boing. Go back to sleep. That's life in Wiltshire, you know. And you wake up in the morning and you say, wow, that was amazing last night, wasn't it? Let's go to the crop circle. You go, there's the crop circle. So I was saying about Golden Ball Hill, and I'd never seen it. And they were staying at the end of a valley. You see, you've got the valley now, which actually looks very much, I don't know if you were there last night, listening to Major Jenkins talking about the Milky Way. And the Milky Way has a very particular pattern. Now, the whole of the valley in Wiltshire is actually exactly like that. And all the sacred sites represents the stellar constellations. And the Milky Way, Milk Hill, is directly in line with the Milky Way. That's why it's called Milk Hill. So it's a very magic thing. And the valley is about 20 miles long. And they were staying at the end of the valley there. And Golden Ball Hill is here, and I live there. So I had to try to cross the whole valley to go back home at 11 o'clock at night. Pitch black, there's no light there. And I'm driving along, you know, thinking of nothing in particular. And suddenly at the corner of my eye, I see these lights. I'm going, wait a minute, what's this? You know, and I stopped the car. These are golden balls. They're golden balls floating above Golden Ball Hill. I'm thinking, what is this? Now, that's Golden Ball Hill, and they're golden balls. Wow! Golden balls and golden balls. This is it. I've seen the light. I'm just sitting there. Wow, this is amazing. This is amazing, you know. And the 2 white ones appear. Wow, is there a car there? Suddenly my intellect, you know, my rational brain comes here. There must be cars up there. I'm looking. Is there a car? No, I can see the bushes. It's above the bushes. Can't be a car. So wipe that out of your mind. You know, these are balls with light, golden, white, and then a green one appears. Bing. And these were like beach balls, and they were very, very bright, very bright. They were not translucent. And I watched that for about 10 minutes, and there are cars coming behind me, and they swerve, you know, say, oh, this is a bit dangerous here, because it's very narrow. So I'm still sitting there, and I watched them for about 10 minutes, and I thought, well, I better go to the car park, which is just next to Golden Ball Hill, the famous car park you may have heard about recently. And I go to the car park there, and sure enough, there's people parked there, and people camping, and there's nothing. I can't see the light above Golden Ball Hill, because there's Golden Ball Hill. Car park is here, Golden Ball Hill is there, and I could see them floating above the Golden Ball Hill from below in the valley, and at the car park, I can't see anything. Everything seems absolutely normal. So I thought maybe it's finished. So I go back, and no, it's still going on. So it was above the field, not above the hill, you see. It was above that. Exactly in that position. So I thought, immediately the thought came to me, watch this space. there will be a formation at Golden Ball Hill. You better watch this Golden Ball Hill. So I did. I made a point. And every time I went flying, I sent the pilot to see that. It came about a week later, exactly below where the balls were floating. I don't think it's man-made. End of story. It isn't man-made. You know, you may see people in the car park putting stuff in their cars at 4 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't mean they were doing a formation. It really doesn't. It's not factual, this. This is an assumption. It's not a fact. The only time I can tell you this has been man-made is when I've seen these guys do it, and you see them doing it when they do a commercial thing. If you don't see them make a formation, don't assume. It's an assumption, you know. And in this case, I know for sure, because I've seen these lights there, and they were something. I felt something is being prepared. The energy is being stirred up. That's how I read it. Every summer we have stars. This year, that 7-pointed, 11, 13, very pretty, at Etchillhampton Hill. A wonderful little formation right next to a windmill. And now look at this. Look at this amazing spiral. Again, the serpent. That's a symbol of the coiled serpent. It was done in a way that I've never seen. All the wheat was twisted very, very hard. It was absolutely solid, and it was about a foot and a half high, and it was completely twisted together. It was actually like this. You see? Went like a tourbillon. A tourbillon. This is actually how water forms vortices in flowing water. Exactly like that. It's exactly like that. If you look through these vortices, you see these shapes. Look at that. Many, many crop circles have been like that. This is like the universe, in actual fact, isn't it? This is the same pattern of movement, same energy. Again, serpent. Another little one next to the forest. Fantastic, very much on vibration pattern. Very, very pretty. The wheat was woven right through. It's all plaited. You can just about see it. You can see it better in the calendar, actually, that it's plaited. Now, that's the best, isn't it? We had a wonderful visit this summer. Flor de Mayo, who is here, who will be speaking this weekend, is Mayan, as you know. And I had invited her here last year, and she came to Wiltshire. She'd never been to England. The day she arrived, the Mayan disc arrived. Now that's some coincidence, isn't it? That's some synchronicity. It was very encouraging to have that. It's a wonderful thing. It came in 2 parts. It doesn't mean because it's in 2 parts it's man-made. We've had many examples of that, many examples. To me, it's reassuring that the higher consciousness is not 100%, perfect. We've had references to Mayan discs before, that's one of them, but it's not the same. It's a continuation of the same theme. Here you can see again the wing disc with the moon and the sun and the wings. That was the third thing. So I'm just going to wrap up very quickly. That brings us to the Mayan calendar. We've tentatively put it in our calendar. We may, it's a very tentative thing, but I think it's very important to study the Mayan calendar. It's not my knowledge, but I'm really, really open to learn. I really want to do that. And to me, I see that it's serpent knowledge. Even without knowing anything about the Mayan knowledge, I can see it's serpent knowledge. It's the DNA, refers to DNA. We've had many intimation of DNA. That's the DNA. Many intimation of DNA in the crop circle. This is the actual scientific, okay, 5 minutes, okay, good. That gives me time to wrap it up. That is the modern representation of the DNA. As you can see, it's quite mechanical, and it's all fairly dead. The ancient representation of the DNA is like this. It's not dead. They're serpents. It's conscious and living. You see the difference? We've had many intimation of serpent and DNA in the formation. I think Alan Brown will talk to you about this. This is an extraordinary formation. It intimates to a serpent and to the DNA and to the medicine wheel. So it's wrapped up in the several layers of symbols, which actually is a complete teaching. Many of these formations, you can study that only this symbol in your lifetime, and it's a complete teaching. And we get a complete teaching every day. Can you imagine this? You know, you think, oh, a complete teaching. Where do I start? Bang, another one. Bang, another one. It's too much. It's too much for a human being. You know, this is for humanity. This is for the whole of us. Not one person can cope with this. It's absolutely impossible. You can't cope with one symbol. You know, people study the Mayan calendar in their whole life for generation and generation and generation. That is a complete system, a complete teaching. And you get a Mayan symbol one day, and you get the medicine wheel DNA the next day, and you get the Kabbalah the next day, and you get the Mandelbrot. They were complete teachings. We're going mad. It is for humanity. You know, we'll spend the whole next cycle working on this. This is the knowledge for the next cycle. I spoke to an Indian lady from India, and I said, have you ever seen things like that appearing in the field like this? This is outrageous. How can it happen? She said it's written in the Vedas. It was written before this cycle in the Vedas. This is the Vedas of tomorrow. This is the Bible of tomorrow. This is the basis for the next cycle. This is the knowledge for all the races of the world for the next 26,000 years. It's very, very important. That is the DNA in the crop circles that we've had in 1996. So we've had a lot of information on DNA. And this is the lines of energy in the world that goes around. Now, if that doesn't look like a serpent, you know, it encircles the earth. That goes straight through Avebury. Avebury is thought to be the heart chakra of the world. And that brings us back to Avebury. The heart chakra of the world. We were told, not me personally, but we were told by a Tibetan, Tibetan priest monk who came to he came to Avebury and he did some ceremonies there, and he said, "I don't know why you're bothering to go to the east. The heart chakra of the world is here." And that's why the crop circles appear there. It's from the heart. You have to connect with the heart. Again, in the chakra system they showed us, it's through the heart, through the intuition, that we will connect with the universe. It's not through the intellect. The intellect is very, very important. I'm not denigrating the intellect. We must never lose our reason. We really need to hang on to our reason, especially when you study crop circle, because you can go, doolally. You need the reason, but you need the intuition. And the intuition comes through the heart. And that's the end of my lecture. Thank you.